All right, boys and girls, let's talk about the decline of beauty as a value, which again I would associate with the move to make beauty a subjective quality and to associate it with pleasure. Now, in the 18th century, when views like that about beauty were current, you actually had art that reflected such ideas in a way. I mean, say Rococo painting, which was meant to provide a very sort of frivolous, pure visual pleasure. This had not always been the case in art, and in fact, beauty was always only one of the possible goals of art. I mean, look at, say, Grunewald's Eisenheim altarpiece, at least the crucifixion, you know, and beauty is not the goal, and it isn't the goal of much of Western art. But beauty conceived of as pure visual pleasure is the goal of art, of a lot of art of the 18th century. I mean, we might think of, say, Fragonard. Now, Rococo, and that depicts the frivolous pleasures of the upper classes, you know, well-dressed people flirting and stuff. Now, Rococo art is associated with the French court of the 18th century. And it's not only like a little emblem of their aesthetic or their politics, it's also a large item in their budgets, you know, for Rococo architecture and you know, the interior decorations of Versailles and things like this. You know, I mean, so you're actually like fleecing the peasantry in order to you know, achieve very pleasurable interior decorating for Marie Antoinette or something like that. You know, let them eat cake when they have no bread. Those are the words of someone who has confused, you know, pleasure with, you know, mere pleasure with the meaning of life or something, you know. And what she should have done has been, you know, selling her clothes to feed the peasantry, let's say, if necessary. And, you know, in general, and so the French court was ripe for destruction, I mean, ripe for overthrow. And their aesthetic was an emblem, at least, of their injustice. It was more than an emblem of their injustice. It you know, it embodied their injustice. And furthermore, you have a set of developments which associate beauty as pleasure with right-wing politics from then until now. So, for example, associating it with capitalism. And, you know, with the basic career of an American robber baron is that, you know, by exploiting his workers and, you know, breaking strikes and stuff like that, he creates an unbelievable, monstrous fortune, and he spends it on the masterpieces of Western art, which he then donates to a museum. You know, and if you, and you know, the pleasures of the Mellons and the Carnegies and stuff, the Rockefellers, their pleasure in the visual arts taints the visual arts at a minimum. And, you know, so, and again, it's more than just an emblem. Actual resources are expended on these things. And, you know, in a way that shows the injustice of the capitalist system. I mean, so the idea is you better get serious about justice. And to do that, you ditch beauty. I mean, you don't have time for, you know, nice little pleasures when people are starving. So there's a leftist critique of beauty, and you know, it's embodied in Stalinist architecture, or even in some of the American Stalinism, like, let's say, housing projects of the 1960s and things like this. These things are not, they don't just fail to be beautiful, they're pointedly anti-beautiful. Okay, and then the association of beauty with the Third Reich. And there's probably never been a more aestheticized politics than the Third Reich. Hitler was himself an artist, and you know, and I think cared about nothing so much as aesthetics. And you know, one feature of his anti-Semitism, as well as its discourse of purity, which could be an aesthetic category, is its association with like expressionism and the degeneracy of art. And you know, the films of Leni Riefenstahl are the architecture of Albert Speer, even though there's a lot of kitsch in Nazism and bad art, these are, you know, beautiful expressions of a monstrous political philosophy. So, I mean, I would say that in a way, beauty was discredited by its association with right-wing politics, and also within art. The conception of the artist, beginning in the Romantic era and through modernism, was of this colossal genius who remakes the world from the contents of his gigantic skull. So somebody like Beethoven or Van Gogh or Picasso. Now, if that is the way you're conceiving an artist, as this overwhelming genius, and you're conceiving beauty as, you know, as mere pleasure, then beauty is not a worthy goal for somebody like that, or somebody who thinks of themselves like that, or someone who, you know, people think of like that. They have to be doing something else, and in fact, you know, to some extent they were. Beauty, when it descends into subjective pleasure, is no longer a worthy goal for art, especially as art gets inflated especially within Romanticism, to this almost absurd extent. Okay. Now, in brief response to this, I'd say liberation movements too have an aesthetic, and we wouldn't want to be without it. You know, and the best response to right-wing beauty, or, you know, beauty as oppression, would be beauty as liberation. And we might think of examples, the kinds of examples that I'm interested in, like, I don't know, reggae music, Bob Marley, you know, incredibly beautiful stuff, dedicated to liberation and inspiring people all over the world. Or graffiti, you know, attempts to actually interrupt the urban environment, some of it intensely beautiful, and anarchic. Every politics, it seems to me, deploys aesthetic resources and has an interpretation of the beautiful. You know, this is probably true even of Stalinism. So in politics, as in every other field of endeavor, we can't get rid of beauty. And though we want justice, and though, you know, appreciating pretty pictures as people starve is wrong. Even people who are starving, are often trying to arrange their lives in a way they find meaningful, in a way they can connect to, and to control their own environments in a way that expresses themselves. And that is a demonstration of the universality of beauty and the importance of beauty, and the fact that beauty is about more than just frivolous pleasure, but about the connection of human beings to each other and to the world. The end.